Welcome RegenAG Nation. Thank you for joining us. We want to continue this pest series. So we're specifically looking at insects that can cause damage in certain crops. Today we're out in a hop field. Two-spotted spider mite is the pest that can affect yields, quality, all those things. Additionally, it's the aesthetics of the hops themselves. So we want these things to come in. We want them to be really heavy. We want them to be green. We want them to have great quality. Spider mites affect all those things. When you get a spider mite infestation that you can't control in these hop fields, you tend to get browning of cones. You also have reduced quality and overall yields. And so this field is a good representation of the kind of pressure that we see oftentimes in the hops. As you look up into the canopy, you can see that the color is starting to change to more of a brownish, reddish color. And that's just because these mites are actually feeding on the leaves of the cones themselves. Now, one of the ways that we scout, we talked about this, but we look at the leaves, the underside of leaves specifically in hops. As you can see, we've pulled a few leaves here. I don't know if you can see the webbing created from the mites themselves. We're just gonna kind of move that around. Hopefully we can get a good idea of that webbing. Oftentimes we'll use a loop to look at this and see if we've got eggs, if we've got adults, if we've got nymphs, kind of identify all those stages. You can see some webbing here as well. And this one isn't quite as bad, but there's a significant amount of activity. Typically when you get webbing, it's really hard to get rid of them because many of the sprays that we'll utilize will not penetrate that. So one of the things that we look at is, why do we have mite problems? It can be a number of things. It can be nutritional. It can also be an irrigation thing. Either they're too wet, too dry. Oftentimes they overwinter. The populations overwinter in some fields that have previous high history of mites, and so you'll get infestations. Also, it's associated, as you can see this leaf, with dust and debris. They like these really dry, dusty conditions for some reasons. Mites just find it inhabitable. So if you were able to keep the plant condition to where the leaf is really healthy, green, and it's got good health, you'll generally see less if you've kind of checked all the boxes nutritionally, if you're taking care of the watering schedules really well. But some blocks, we just have issues. And so as you can see, what they do to these cones is they really change the output at the end of the day. Probably 2 weeks ago, these things looked really green, nice, good sized cones, good color. And now, as you can see, when we harvest these things, they won't have the same aesthetic quality and also just yields. All right, so another thing you can see as you look at this leaf itself, you can actually see the damage that's created by these mites. It's kind of chlorotic. There's what's called stippling, or stippling, however you pronounce that. It's basically just areas where the mites have fed. They've pulled that chlorophyll and things out of there. You can see as they kind of deteriorate those leaves, they sort of move on to the cones later on in the season. And so you can see as they feed on the actual leaves, all those individual leaves of the cone, it takes all the color out of them, which is really a problem. Here is one of them as well that's kind of broken out. There's still good lupulin and good quality inside there, but oftentimes these buyers also want the good green color that you see. Now, one of the things that's worth mentioning is spider mites, for whatever reason, we've noticed in hops, they tend to pick on certain varieties and others. I don't know exactly why that is. Mosaics, which is a block that we're in now, they tend to be particularly prone to mite infestations and attacks. Some of what we've noticed in our sap sampling from a nutritional standpoint is that mosaics tend to overconsume nitrogen. So oftentimes some of the cycles, the mite cycles, can be sped up by additional nitrogen in the plant. So it might have something to do with that. It's all really theoretical at this point, but what we do know is you have to take particular caution in certain varieties such as mosaics. Anyway, thank you for joining us, and continue to follow us as we educate the farming community and we bring people from the outside and the inside, and we bring everybody together. Thank you so much.